So welcome along if on YouTube. Tune in later in the day. Just skip ahead a minute or two and I'll just set us up on Facebook here as well now. So move those margins just a touch. Okay, welcome along. As we always say, just if you're tuning in a bit later in the day, maybe just skip ahead a minute and we'll be kind of right into things. So my name is Shane. I deliver a couple of the COPD groups. I would have been in Bleu, Ballyfermot, I've met the group out in Wicklow, a couple others there as well, Ballyfermot as well, a long-term group I've had. So what we're going to do is a COPD class A, or for lung-associated conditions. Of course, everyone is very welcome along to this session. Just as I always say, bear in mind that some of the points will be in relation to COPD. So if you're unsure as to why I might say certain things. So Patrick, Sally, Dennis, welcome along everyone. Great to have you with us. Couple of things I would always say. We like to push nice and hard in these sessions. Everyone is different. I will give seated adaptations for all the movements, just to push as hard as you are comfortable. Something we like to use, I don't want to get too kind of bogged down on this, particularly when I'm just showing it online like so, but our board scale. So that's a scale of 0 to 10. Let's not get too, as I say, fixated on, but the scale of 0 to 10, we like to work at about 3 or 4 out of 10. And that's something those of us within the COPD groups might be quite familiar with. So that you're working hard, you feel you're active, but never feeling completely breathless, that you'd be unable to talk. So just remembering that if you feel a little bit breathless, we want to sit down and rest. So Philomena, Sylvia, Carol, all very welcome on. Great to have you with us. So what I think we do, we've just tipped past 11. So I think it's probably enough for me. As I always say, any movements that cause pain, any discomfort, just of course to leave those movements out. Otherwise, let's get straight into it and let's get moving. So I'm going to start off with my shoulders, just beginning to roll those shoulders back. The idea, I'm going to do a little bit of aerobic work at the start, as I've been doing in these sessions, then into our main kind of strength circuit. And then we'll do a little bit of breathing towards the end of the session, kind of a breathing exercise, viewing it as an exercise in itself, not something that we want to rush through. We'll take our time with a little bit of breathing at the end of the session. Rolling shoulders forward in circles, just showing you that from the side. Things we want for this session, just to have your bottle of water at the ready, maybe having a window open in the room you're in, good firm chair, and having your weights. You can use bottles, tins, whatever is right, comfortable for you to use. Okay. Next, I'm going to bring hands up at chest and just press straight out from my chest. So just pushing directly out in front. Carol, Ellen, Deirdre, all very welcome along. Great to have with us. Or Eileen, sorry. Pressing straight out from chest. Pushing straight out, just opening up our body. We're gradually bringing our heart rate up, just loosening out all our joints, preparing our body for harder work. Okay. Next, what I'm going to do is just bring my hands together, keeping my hips fixed in position, lightly turning to the right and turning to the left, just allowing my head to turn with the movement. If you're in a seated position, just to mimic these warm-up movements. What I would say as well, for some of the exercises, we might actually use our wall. So if you have a room or a suitable wall nearby that you could use for a couple of the movements, just to give you that kind of heads up. If you don't, there's no real kind of suitable space, that's absolutely fine. We will be able to adapt those movements. So it's not a problem. Just if you happen to have a wall nearby that's kind of suitable to support your body, we will use that. Okay, next, arms out, just pull back, just into a little bit of rowing. Just kind of working all different parts of the body, shoulder, chest, back, rotation. So just opening up the body. I like to grab, pull back, tucking the elbows in, getting a nice squeeze and connection with the back of my body. So just rowing, pulling back. Okay. And back in. And one more time, I'm going to bring hands together and just into that nice light rotation. I think really nice to open up the upper body, just a little rotation side to side, just getting a nice stretch in our back and opening up your upper body here. Okay, now moving to my lower body. I might use the chair as a little bit of support, and I'm just going to begin lifting my knees up nice and high. So this is less about speed of movement and more about getting a nice big lift. And this is kind of preparing us for one of the movements. We're going to do a march against the wall as one of our movements. So just practicing that movement out. Big lift, big lift. Okay. And again, I have that chair here just to guide me along as a little bit of support. Next, I'm just going to nice and light just kick the legs out straight in front. Just keeping myself moving here, kicking the legs out nice and light. And then again, just to return, nice big lift, nice big lift. Just continuing on right and left. Just doing a final check in there. No problem, Derek. Great to have you with us. Perfect. You can hear us there on YouTube. So very welcome along, Derek. Welcome Facebook. Welcome YouTube, everyone. One more time, just nice and light. Kick the legs out. Okay, and then just one final action in our warm-up, which is just the ankles, and that's something I always like to give a little bit of attention to. If I just turn that you can see, I'm going to dig my left heel out and then point toes to the floor. Hopefully we see that okay. Heel, toes, just swap between the two positions. Heel to the floor, toes point down. So I'm getting that movement through the ankle. Heel, toes, just opening up. If that's an area that's a little bit tight, stiff, I know from experience sometimes people do have issues with maybe a full rotation. So even something like this, getting what we can, as much movement as we comfortably can. And switch. And again, I'm supported by my chair here, my right heel, toes, heel, toes, swapping between those two positions. Lightly digging the heel and then pointing toes down to the floor. And just continuing to swap between those two positions. Heel, toes, and back down. Okay, so moving on straight into our aerobic block of work. 3 movements, all of which I am going to lead pressed against the wall. So the wall will give me support. I'm going to show you how you can adapt that if you don't have your wall. But first, what I want to do is just show you the seated adaptations, and we'll build our way up. So just to show how, if you're performing this session in seated, your first movement, our wall march will just simply be a seated march, but doing it with a bit of intensity, that you're holding your chair and lifting those knees up nice and tall. Okay. Second movement, heel raises, will just be a case of walking your feet back, lifting the heels up on the spot. And your third movement, which in standing will be bum kicks, I'll want you to sit forward in your chair with your legs out and just pull back one at a time, going from the heel to the toes of your foot. So they are your 3 seated movements, which will be performed in a circuit. If standing, the first movement we will be doing is a wall march. So I will place my hands against the wall. I will stand back a little bit and I will drive my knees up nice and high without rounding my back. My second movement, I will walk in and I will perform those heel raises. And my third movement, still secure against the wall, I will go for those bum kicks, lightly kicking my heels behind. So if you don't have a wall nearby, just simply to use your chair as a support tool instead, so that I can march with the support of my chair. I can perform my heel raises again with the support of my chair. And of course, I can perform those bum kicks here as well with the support of my chair. So I'm going to move this out of the way. The idea is we perform each movement on the clock this aerobic block. As I always say in my classes when they're live, we like to get our participants up, moving, active, and we kind of clear out. We'll hear that in the lungs, we cough as we perform some of the movements. So we just want to get the body active, moving, keeping it moving as much as you can. Any point you feel breathless here, simply to rest, catch your breath and take a seated position, okay? So let's begin our first movement. So apologies to turn my back to the camera, but just for these movements. Hands placed securely against the wall or holding your chair. I stand back just a little bit, okay? So I'm not rounding my back, I'm nice and straight. And I begin, lift, lift. Okay, so I'm starting to lift my knees up nice and high. Think I'm in a nice secure position placed against the wall. So I have that support. So I can go at a nice intensity here because I'm in a nice, strong, supported position. I'm getting a big, strong lift of the knee, really working my hips with this movement. My core is active as well, not rounding my back. I'm going at a pace that I can comfortable with. Yes, I feel a challenge, but I can still talk. I'm not completely breathless that I'm unable to talk, that it's too difficult. And I slow the pace down if it is. Okay, second movement, couple of seconds just to set up. I want you to walk in a little bit closer. So now I'm more upright, nice and straight. And I begin lifting my heels straight up off the floor. So your second movement. No pressure on this first round. Get a feel for the 3 movements. And then round 2 and 3, you can kind of decide how much intensity you want to perform this at. Never so hard that you're completely breathless and uncomfortable, but feeling a challenge and exertion that you know your body is active and working. Okay, so I'm lifting my heels up, supported against the wall. Of course, you can hold on to the back of your chair if there's no wall nearby, or you might be performing this in a seated position. Okay, so last couple of seconds here, just lifting those heels up. And rest, okay? So we set up for 1/3 final movement, which is just lightly kicking the legs back, okay? So again, I'm supported by my wall or holding my chair. And I will begin. Just curl the leg back, curl the leg back. And you'll see how I just gently allow my body to tilt side to side. A little, very subtle weight shift side to side. But again, secure with my position against the wall or holding your chair. And again, in that seated position, curling the legs back from the heel to the toes of your foot. Just alternating in the same way. Again, at a pace that's comfortable to you. We're going to repeat these same 3 movements 2 more times. So kind of after this first round, have a check with yourself. Is this really difficult? Is this quite easy? Can I go a little bit harder? Do I need to slow it down? Kind of get that feel yourself and rest, okay? So back to movement 1, which is our wall march. Hands against the wall. I'm going to walk my position back a little bit, so I have a little bit of space. And I begin the movement. Right knee, left knee. Again, at a nice kind of moderate intensity, something that you can sustain for the block of time without needing to stop. So not so fast or intense that you're really struggling with this. Trying to be able to sustain the movement. Big lift of the knee, really working my hips with this movement. My upper body stays straight as I perform the action. So I'm not bending or rounding that back at all here. There we go, my last couple of seconds. Lifting those knees up. And walk it in. So again, I'm just going to walk my position closer into the wall. Just checking there. Yeah, we're still live anyway. Hands against the wall. Body nice and straight. And I want to begin lifting my heels up off the floor. So I'm thinking or feeling the back of my lower legs, those calves. Again, it's absolutely fine to be holding the back of your chair or in that seated position, that same action, lifting your heels up. Again, there's no pressure. It's not about matching the same intensity that you see on the camera. Go at a pace that feels comfortable and right for you, slowing it down if needed. Always in control, never completely breathless, never experiencing pain with a movement. But challenge, yes, maybe a little bit of exertion, yes. Last couple of seconds. Okay, so again, just going to go back now to those bum kicks where I lightly curl the legs back. So again, I pretty much stay in that same secure position. And I will begin in 3, 2, 1. Lightly curl back, curl back. So I'm just going to keep this third one kind of not too intense, just nice and light as I curl the leg back each time. Very subtle tilt side to side, just allowing a very small shift of weight side to side. Just curling the leg back one at a time. And again, I'm in a nice, strong, secure position, supported by the wall, breathing all the time, taking lots of air in this nice upright position. And that's another reason why we don't want to kind of bend and be tight and uncomfortable in this position. We're strong, supported against the wall. Okay. And rest again. So we'll set up one final round, just quickly checking everything all right there. You two good? Okay. And morning, everyone. Great stuff. So let's continue. 1/3 final round. Again, anything uncomfortable, do just rest it out. There's no pressure at all. Okay, so third final round with each movement. Hands against the wall, on the chair, or in your seated position. I step back a little bit. Right knee, left knee. So lifting those knees up. Really important that I keep a nice straight upper body. I don't want to bend at all in this position. So my arms are just straight in front, driving my right knee and then my left knee. So a really good movement of our hips. Core is active as well. And I'm just keeping myself moving at a pace and intensity that I can sustain without becoming breathless and uncomfortable with the action. Right and left. Last couple of seconds with this wall march. And walk it in. So I straighten my position. Now I'm less of an angle. I'm nice and upright. Or holding on to the back of that chair. So again, in 3, 2, 1, let's begin. Lifting the heels up. Right up onto the toes of our feet. I'm keeping those toes straight, pointed to the wall. And my foot placement is about hip width apart here. So they're not really wide. So keeping the body nice and straight. And it's just going up, back to the floor. Up, back to the floor. Breathing all the time. Never holding that breath as we exercise. Maybe feeling a little work through the back of those lower legs. We will actually return to them again later in the session with a little bit of extra challenge. But just lifting those heels up. Last couple of seconds. And rest. Okay, so final movements, just those leg where we curl the leg behind. I'm still in that secure position against the wall. And I'm going to begin. Just lightly curl leg back, curl leg back. Okay, again, my position stays nice and upright. And I just allow a little small shift of weight side to side. So I'm not too kind of rigid or tight in the position. I can just let my body flow nice and light with the movement. Side to side. Curl, curl. Breathing all the time. It doesn't matter if it's the first exercise or the last exercise. I always say in the classes, never power through. If you feel breathless related to your COPD, you just simply rest. And it doesn't matter about kind of push out because it's the last one. We would always just rest if we are feeling a little bit breathless and uncomfortable. It was, as I say, first or last exercise. And what rest. Okay. Take a breather. That's recovery strategies. Again, Again, it might just simply be a case of just resting against the chair, just taking some pressure off the upper body, just resting against the chair. Some of us will indeed prefer the seated position of just kind of naturally lying forward. Again, everyone has their own method with COPD, whatever feels comfortable to you, just to take a little bit of a breather, a couple of seconds rest here, take some pressure off the upper body. So we can take a drink of water. We're going to move into our strength block of work. We're in no rush to after that. Really good block of work there. So, and again, keep sipping on that water. So we're going to set up for our strength circuit. So again, very similar in that we work movements for a block of time. What do we have? 5 movements in total. We will perform 3 rounds of this circuit. So I would say, again, just kind of get a feel for the movements in this first round. And then round 2 and 3, you can kind of adjust or change anything as you need. So I'll go through. First movement, we're going to do a weighted squat or sit to stand. So first thing, if you don't want to squat, the reason for that, we're performing it seated. What I want you to do is a leg extension. We can still bear our 2 weights. I want you to extend the right leg, extend the left leg. So that is your seated option for this first movement. The movement I will lead with is a weighted squat or sit to stand. So there's a number of ways you can do this. First of all, with or without weight. You can make this a squat or a full sit to stand. Either version, I'm going to keep that chair behind me just to guide me with the movement. Okay, so I'm going to put the clock on. We're going to start in just about 20 seconds, and I'm going to set this first one up. So remember, you're doing this with or without weight. Stance, feet about hip width apart, toes just slightly out, knees nice and soft, chest out. Okay, from that position, I will begin sitting down and back towards my chair in 3, 2, 1. I will begin. So I lightly squat or sit down and then straight back up. Again, you can choose to make this a full squat, so not touching the chair, or just kind of lightly squatting or sitting fully to the chair. So as I demonstrate now, if I feel I need to fully sit, just to kind of keep the movement on track, I will do that. My knees will stay in line with my toes, so they're not caving in. My hips are moving down and back towards the chair. And then they're coming forward as I stand up. My upper body stays straight. And just making sure we're not bending that back. Sometimes we can be too focused about not touching the chair. I would rather lightly tap the chair with my bum and have that upper body straight than bending my back and kind of not really tipping the chair. So think about it that way, keeping that upper body straight. With or without weight on this movement, it's entirely optional. There's no right or wrong. It's just about picking the level that's right for you. And rest. Second movement, arm curl combined with a knee lift, or just like a brief march in between. Couple of seconds rest, so we'll just use up our rest first. This movement will be performed in exactly the same way if in a seated position. Okay, so nothing will change. What I want to do is hold my 2 weights, elbows by my side, curl my weights up, back down, and then lift right knee, lift left knee, reset, curl the weights, right knee, left knee. So if you feel in any way unbalanced with this movement, I would suggest just to leave the knee lift out and just continue with your arm curl. Again, we can perform this in seated in exactly the same way. You perform your arm curl, lifting the weights towards your shoulders, and then right knee, left knee. So nice and dynamic, challenging movements. Not to push that knee so high that you would feel unbalanced. Just keep it as a nice, strong, controlled movement. Breathing all the time. keeping my upper body straight. So again, not arching that back, not bending that back. Picking whatever level of the movement is most comfortable to you. And back down, okay? Third movement. Again, there's no panic, no rush. We always have about 25 seconds just to set up, so no rush. And what we're going to do is weighted heel raises. Again, you can perform these heel raises in a seated position. You can perform it without weight, just by holding the back of the chair. But the version I want to go with now is holding the two weights by my side, toes pointed straight ahead, and I begin lifting my heels up, straight up. And I have that added challenge of bearing weight through each side, showing you that from the side. And why I show it from the side is that I want to show that I'm keeping a nice straight body, that I don't allow this kind of action to happen, that the hips are doing the movement. I want to feel the work through the back of my lower legs. So I'm holding my weight for additional challenge, lifting my heels up. And I just try and get that little bit of separation with every rep. Heels up, back down, reset. Heels up, back down, reset. So I'm not bouncing up and down or using momentum. There's a very controlled, purposeful lift of the heels every time. Simple changes, get rid of the weights, hold on to the back of your chair, seated position if needed. Final seconds. And rest, okay? Next movement. A couple of ways we can perform this. Again, we're still resting on the clock, so I'm just demonstrating here, so no need to. What we will be doing is light chair taps. Any difficulty with that chair is too high, you might just bring it into a march on the spot. And of course, you can just march in that seated position. So let's begin that movement, whichever version is right for you. Holding my two weights, lightly tap, lightly tap. I always say start slow, kind of cautious on this, making sure you feel strong and balanced as you perform the movement. So I don't want to go really fast here and be losing position, okay? So I want to start strong and balanced, and then I can kind of see how from there, if I want to go a little bit more intensely, I can gradually up it down. But start kind of cautious, make sure you're comfortable. Maybe your chair doesn't feel good, this height is a little bit too difficult. Take a step back and just march on the spot in a height that's better for you. Simple things, again, take the weight out of the movement if you need. Perform it in a seated position if you need. So we can make all these little changes as required. Final couple of seconds here. And rest, okay? One final movement, again, we still have rest. You might notice I don't say like 10 or 20, because I know in the groups they're very angry with me for that sometimes if they say 20 seconds left. So I'll just say a couple of seconds or a couple of reps. Okay, so final movements. Working the shoulders. Again, with the theme today, kind of very dynamic movements. This is a front and lateral raise, a combination. So how this looks, standing, seated, the exact same movement. Arms straight, hands down. I raise my weights in front, shoulder level. Reset, and then I'll open to my side. Any difficulty with one plane of movement, for example, if you don't like the front range or if you don't like the side range, just stick with the one plane of movement. So maybe you might like to just focus on the front or just focus on the side, and that's fine. Small things here. If you find that your back was arching as you lift the weight, I would suggest to take up a seated position. Give yourself that bit of support. Again, small changes we can make. I could perform with one arm at a time, as I'll demonstrate now. So I could just do it one side at a time if I find this a little bit difficult. We'll finish out with one more of each. Front, exhaling as I raise. And back down. Rest the weights down. Let's take a bit of a rest. That is your first round of the circuit. Tough dynamic movements. Just trying to allow for challenge there where it's needed, but equally don't be afraid to make these changes, taking weight out of a certain movement, performing a squat or sit to stand instead of a squat, just performing a front raise instead of the two. Make these little changes, make this work best for you. Again, back to your recovery strategy, sitting into the chair or just resting against the back of the chair. Just take some air in through the nose, slowly back out the mouth. And of course, just keep sipping on that water as well. So once you've had that little assessment with yourself, was there anything I didn't like there? Was there anything that caused pain? In which case you're going to change the exercise. You're not going to persist if something doesn't feel good or something's making you very kind of breathless and uncomfortable. You're going to change that movement. If everything feels okay, we're going to go into that second round. Okay? So starting up in about 30 seconds here. I'll take my 2 weights. So our squat or sit stand, and you also have your seated leg extension. Again, I will bear the 2 weights here. You can do this, of course, without weight. Feet about hip width apart, maybe slightly wider, the toes ever so slightly pointing out. My knees are nice and soft. My chest is up, chest is out. And I'll begin lightly squatting, sitting towards chair, straight back up. Squat down, straight back up. Again, points we're thinking about, my knees staying in line with my toes. Hips moving down and back towards chair. Forward as I stand. I can think about pushing my heels into the floor to generate some power as I stand. All the work through my legs. Upper body must stay straight, that I'm not allowing it to bend. I'm not bending myself forward to stand. Power generated up through our legs and through those hips. Squat or fully sit with or without weight. And of course, that seated leg extension if we need. Squat is a strong, powerful movement. I always just say, I'm going to keep this one under check, that you don't bounce up and down or use too much momentum. So it can get quite tiring pretty fast. So we just keep it under control, nice smooth pace, and rest. Arm curl with that combination with your knee lifts. So again, we have a couple of seconds, so we're in no rush. Just catch your breath. I'm not going to rush into any movement. We're always going to use up that rest time. Okay, so 2 weights. Elbows roughly in by my side here. Curling towards my shoulders. And then lift. And lift. And again. Curl the weights. Lift. Lift. And we'll continue on like that. Again, small changes. Take the knee lift out of the movement if you wish, if you want to just continue as a regular arm curl. Seated position, the mechanics of the movement are the same. You're curling those weights to your shoulders and lifting one knee up at a time in that alternate lift. Simple things we'll think about here. Exhale as I curl the weights up. Inhale as I return. Similarly, as I lift the knees up, I'll think exhale. And just inhale on that return. So don't feel you have to kind of rush everything here. A little bit of separation. One last time. And rest. Okay. Third movement, heel raises. Just going to set up here again. Using up that rest. No need to jump into anything. Again, I'm going to hold my 2 weights for our heel lifts. You can do this without weight, holding onto your chair, and of course in that seated position if you prefer. Remember that scale of 0 to 10 I talked about? For those of us with COPD, we're thinking around that 3-4 mark. We know we're active, we feel we're working, but not completely breathless, not uncomfortable with anything. Holding my weights, heels up, back down. Let's begin. Now again, as I go along, I start to think again about getting a nice big lift up onto the toes of my feet. My body stays nice and straight. I'm not allowing my hips to rock forward and back, so they're not generating the power of the movement. The power is through the back of those lower legs, my heels lifting. And again, just kind of a little bit of separation with every rep. You're not bouncing the heels up and down. You've that little bit of control. Maybe just a little pause at the top. Heels up, back down. Last couple of reps here. I'm exhaling as I lift. And back down. Okay. Moving back to our chair taps. So very simply, I'm just going to turn my chair around. Again, of course, you can do this without tapping the chair if that's just a little bit too high, a little bit awkward of an angle. And we can also do this in that seated position. I'm going to grab my 2 weights. Again, you might prefer to do this without any weight, particularly if you felt in any way unbalanced. We're going to get rid of those weights here. Okay, so right foot, left foot, very lightly tapping the chair with the toes of my feet. Start cautiously, just making sure I feel strong and balanced through the position. Upper body is straight. I'm not leaning forward into that position. There's no real weight onto that chair. Very light, tapping with my toes. Hips are active. That element, a little bit of balance, coordination included here as well. Indeed, our upper body, we're bearing weight to each side, so my shoulders, a little bit of endurance here. Again, I can still comfortably talk. I'm not completely breathless. Always reminding ourselves, if we're getting to that side of being uncomfortable, breathless, we simply rest and just sit it out, recover as we need. Last couple of seconds. Not the smoothest rep there. And down. Final movement. Our front lateral raise combination. Again, don't be afraid to just maybe focus on one range of movement, just the front, just the side. Standing and seated, the instruction is the same for the upper body, so nothing will change between the 2 positions. Palms of my hands are down, my arms are straight, and I will begin the movement. Raising in front, return, reset, and out to the side. Just going to move forward a little bit away from that chair. What I would always do is separate the reps, so I'm not rushing from one to the other. Just separate, take my time to set the position up. Weight, no higher than shoulder level. And again, just keep the movement nice and smooth, that we don't swing the weight out. Again, as a rough guideline, no higher than shoulder level. You might not quite reach that height, you might stop a little bit below, and that's fine. I wouldn't force the shoulders to do anything that doesn't feel good. Exhale as I raise. Inhale, refuel as I return. If you don't like one of these movements, just stick with one pattern of just to the front, just lateral, and break it down one arm at a time if you want. And rest. We're going to drop those weights and we're going to rest. Again, recovery strategies, that's just, some of us, again, maybe just resting against the back of that chair, taking some pressure off the upper body. So purposely taking some pressure off. Take some air in, slowly back out. And take a little bit of a rest. And if you feel comfortable, we perform 1/3 final round. So again, if anything wasn't feeling good there, do just change the movement. And be aware, maybe what felt easy enough first round, maybe does get a little bit harder on the 3rd round. So just be aware that maybe will get a little bit tougher this 3rd time. So again, hopefully everything is feeling okay there, and we're feeling a good kind of challenge, but in control of everything. So we'll do this. Another couple of seconds. Don't want to rush it. Just want to give you that little bit of a breather in between. Okay. So what we'll do is 1/3 final round if everything is feeling good there. Okay. So I'm going to set up with my chair over here. I'm going to start in about 30 seconds. I'm going to grab my 2 weights. Things you can do. You can do this without your weight. You can do this as a squat or a sit stand. What I'll do this third time is actually demonstrate from a side view, just to give you another angle of how I might perform this. And just so you can see when I'm talking about keeping that back straight. Set up, feet, a little bit about hip width, maybe even just slightly wider. Knees are soft, chest is up, and I will begin. Holding my 2 weights, I will lightly squat down so I can tip the chair straight back up. Lightly down, straight back up. If I want, I can turn this into a full sit just to reset the position. And if that feels more comfortable to you, just to do it that way. But what I don't want is just to try and avoid that. We're just desperately trying to avoid the chair. Not to be afraid to tap the chair. That mechanically means you're probably in a good range of movement. So tipping the chair, if we're aiming for that full squat and where we're not trying to sit, that's fine. But as I say, don't be afraid to tap the chair. It's a good sign. Those hips are going down and back. My back is staying straight. My hips coming forward as I stand then. Keep the pace under check here. Not so fast that you're bouncing up and down. Keep it controlled. You're happy and strong throughout the movement. Pushing your heels into the ground. Generating lots of power up through those legs. And rest. Next movement, arm curl with that combination of knee lift or hip flex. Okay, couple of seconds. Again, we use up our rest. Catch your breath. And so have my 2 weights. Elbows roughly in by my side here. And I'm going to begin in 3, 2, 1. I curl the weights towards shoulders, good squeeze. And then lift right. Lift left knee. And again, curl the weights, right knee, left knee, and curl again, reset. Lift, lift. Simple things. Again, take the lower part out of the movement. Just keep this as an arm curl if you prefer. If you feel in any way unbalanced, uncomfortable with this one, just turn it into continuing with the arm curl. Why we're doing things like that, we're just making it a little bit harder. Nice kind of aerobic elements, keeping the body active with simple little additions like this. Just making sure we're getting a nice, good, active challenge with our movements. Breathing all the time. Really working those arms, getting a nice curl up towards shoulders, and stem back down. Maybe last repetition or 2 here. And I'll get 1 more. Up and up. Okay, third movement, weighted heel raises. So again, I just want to set up here. So what do I do is I have my chair out, seated, holding on to the back of the chair, or as I'll demonstrate with your weighted hold. So a little bit of endurance through those shoulders as well. So my toes are faced straight ahead. Body is straight, holding my 2 weights, heels up. Again, I know the first rep or 2, it might feel a little bit kind of tight. Then I'll start to open up, right up onto my toes. Keeping it under, again, there's that little bit of separation, but I'm not bouncing up, down. There's a little bit of control. Heels up, right onto my toes, back down. Heels up, back down. So my body stays nice and straight. I think the only way I can go is up and then back to the floor. So hips not swaying forward and back. So I'm not rocking my body. I'm just going up, down. That added challenge, a little bit of weight through each side. So a little bit of endurance. Holding those 2 weights. Last couple of reps. Again, if you need to maybe Drop the weights, hold the back of the chair to finish, that's okay. Feeling back of the lower legs. And rest, okay? Final 2 movements. And I always say, first to the last, it doesn't matter what point, you don't just say, if you feel really breathless in relation to your COPD, you just want to rest if something feels a bit uncomfortable. Don't just say, I'll force it out now because it's the last movement or 2. So, again, options. We can perform this seated. We can perform this as a march on the spot without the chair tap. Or, as I demonstrate, holding my weight, lightly tap the chair, lightly tap the chair. Right foot, left foot. So my toes, lightly tapping. I'm not putting any kind of weight or pressure onto the chair. I'm just lightly tapping. Upper body stays straight. Again, just continuing that theme of just a little bit of endurance. We're holding weight on each side. Again, a nice kind of strong lift every time. Working my hips again. There's a little bit of kind of purpose and intent every time I lift that knee up. Again, I'm at a pace that's comfortable. I know I can sustain this pace. Giving myself a good challenge. Last couple of seconds here. Breathing in, breathing out. And rest. Final movement. Just setting up. Let's move this chair again. Front lateral raise. Again, if you prefer to do this only as the front, only as the lateral range, absolutely fine. Seated position, the movement is the same. So let's begin in about 5 seconds here. Arms are straight, palms of the hands down, grasping your waist. And let's begin. Raise. Weights down, just reset, open to my side, and raise. Reset. So again, you might hear that kind of a exhale as I raise. And I know it might sound quite loud, but I just want to really emphasize that. I like to breathe out as I raise, breathe in as I return the weight back down. Keeping the arms nice and straight. Losing a bit of power, drop it to one arm at a time. Stick with just the one range of movement if you need. Keeping that upper body nice and straight. Making sure we're not arching that back. So if you find your tall tilting like this, let's take it back to a seated position. We don't want to put any kind of pressure like that on our body. Nice, strong, upright position. Final time. And rest down. So we'll let those weights down. Cooling down now. So what we will do first is a couple of movements. And then we'll have a little bit of breathing work as well. So as I said, I never like to rush the breathing work. We think of it as an exercise in itself. Okay, so cooling down next, really important. Just so we take a little bit of time to relax the body after a hard bout of work like that. So a couple of stretches I'm going to lead us through. I might start a couple of upper body stretches in standing, and I might finish a couple of lower body positions in a seated position. So you have that choice. The upper body ones can easily be adapted to the seated position. It's just the same thing. With the lower body ones, we can all do that one in seated. So what I will do first, I'm going to bring my hands together lightly behind my body and just gently pull back. So my upper body doesn't change shape here. I just lightly pull the hands back, open out those shoulders. And then relax back in, keeping those hands together. And again, just lightly pull back. And back down. And one more time, hands still together. Lightly pull back. Hold that stretch. And back in. Into a rotation. Like we did at the start when we were warming up, but now with the purpose of relaxing it all back down. Hands together. want you to turn your body to the right, just stay in here for a couple of seconds, and then I'll gently return over to the left. And again, just stay in here for a couple of seconds. Again, slowly over to the right, and slowly over to the left. Again, over to the right, and slowly over to the left. 2 more, over to the right, and over to the left. Those hips staying in position, so the hips not turning with the body. 1 more time. And back in. Perfect. Next, I'm just going to bring those hands in front of me, so the hands are faced up. I want to push straight out in front, just hold that stretch for a couple of seconds. And then I want to pull back, tuck the elbows in, squeeze, hold for a couple of seconds. Again, I'll just press straight in front and hold. Pull back and hold. Again, just press straight in front, hold for a couple of seconds. And then pull back and hold. And rest down. So moving into the seated position. We did do a lot of work around the calf today, so let's give a stretch to that position. So I'm just trying to get my ankles right here. So my legs are out in front. You know, we worked them so hard. We'll do this as a single today. So let's just bring the right leg out on its own. Point your toes forward away from your body, and then pull the toes back towards yourself. So again, toes forward away from my body. Pull the toes back towards yourself. 1 more time. Toes forward and away. Toes pulled back, stretching out that calf. A little bit of a shake in my leg there. They're all the work on it. Left leg. Toes forward. Pull back. Toes forward. Pull back. And once more. Forward. And pull back. Perfect, okay. Next, what I'll do, just staying in this position, a little bit better into the camera, I'm going to lift my right knee up. Lightly hold on to that knee and just gently raise that knee up towards chest. So again, think of that work we did on our hip throughout the session, so this kind of action. So now we're holding the position. You might feel your glute here a little bit, and it can be very nice on the lower back as well. So I'm just going to hold for a couple of seconds here. And then rest down. Just going to switch it up, adjust, make sure I'm comfortable. Left knee up, lightly holding on, and raising up towards that chest. I'm going to hold for a couple of seconds. And then relax down. So we'll do 1 more time, just in case it didn't feel right the first time. It just takes a little bit of practice. Again, adjust. I feel comfortable. My right knee is up. I hold on to that knee. And lightly raise up towards that chest. I stretch the glute, my hip, lower back feeling good. So just holding that position. A couple of seconds here. And back down. And then again, I'll just switch. Left knee is up, lightly holding on. And gently raising that knee up towards the chest. Again, holding this position for a couple of seconds. And rest, okay? And as I said, just a little bit of breathing. As I said, this is something I want to rush through or anything. So we have a little bit of time, no panic on the clock here. So I'm going to try and do a little bit of kind of belly breathing. The idea here is we never want to stay shallow and tight. So when we're breathing, we don't want this kind of position that we're hunching the shoulders, moving through the chest. So I'm going to cue myself. We can do this in standing or seated. I'll just stay as I am. What I want to do is place 1 hand onto my chest, 1 hand onto my tummy. As I take air in through my nose, I'm going to think of my belly expanding and closing in as I inhale and exhale. What I want for my chest is to stay fixed in position. So I don't want the chest, shoulders to move. So don't worry if the chest does move. It just might mean we're a little bit kind of tighter and shallow with the breathing. We are trying to get a little bit deeper which is why I want the belly movement. But just see what happens for you. Close the eyes if it helps you. It does help some people with breathing. So hand on chest, hand on belly. Inhale through the nose. Expand and fill my belly. Exhale out the mouth. Belly goes in. Inhale through nose. Exhale out the mouth. Inhale through nose. Belly filling with air. Exhale out the mouth. Inhale through nose. Exhale slowly out the mouth. 3 more. Inhale through nose. Fill, expand my belly with air. Nice slow exhale. Twice more. Inhale through nose. Filling my belly with air. Slow exhale. Once more. Chest stays fixed. Belly will move. And rest, okay? So that's our session, just with that breathing. It's just giving you a bit of feedback. Are you breathing tight in the chest, or are you down in the stomach? Not wrong, not to worry if it is more in the chest, but just that we're trying to get deeper with the breathing and trying to get more movement in the belly compared to the chest. So that's our breathing work. So really good work, everyone. We did a lot of aerobic work there where we were moving against the wall. We did a lot of strength work. We had weight pretty much through every movement. So whatever level of that you did, brilliant stuff. Have a nice rest after that, because we did work very hard. So do give yourself a breather. So really well done, YouTube. Really well done, everyone on Facebook. I'll talk to you again. Have a great day. Well done, everyone. Brilliant stuff, Derek. Super stuff. Well done. Nice. Maybe a cup of tea after that.